The people building real wealth in 2026 share a quiet, powerful secret. They are managing their hard-earned money, exactly like your parents and grandparents did. Over the years, most of us simply stopped doing these crucial things. These habits might feel a bit strange or overly restrictive to you right now. That is mainly because almost nobody practices them in our modern, fast-paced world. This is not about some magic investing trick or a hidden Wall Street method. These are beautifully simple, almost forgotten financial customs. Most people foolishly dismiss them as completely outdated and useless. Yet the folks who are truly getting ahead quietly brought them back to life. After studying human financial behavior for years, I found the undeniable truth. I carefully narrowed all this noise down to 15 exact life-changing habits. Fair warning, a few of these truths are going to sting a little bit. You probably dropped the very first habit without even realizing it happened. If you only remember one single thing today, please make it the final habit. It is the one crucial habit that absolutely nobody wants to talk about openly. Tragically, it is also the one that is quietly costing you the most money. I have spent 7 long, fascinating years studying American families and their money. I did not just study this in a cold, distant academic way. I watched, observed, and deeply compared different generations over time. I desperately wanted to know what people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s did. I needed to deeply understand what the rest of us suddenly stopped doing. Then I found a terrifying piece of data that forced me to speak out. The Federal Reserve published a sobering report in 2025 using 2024 data. It measured the true economic well-being of households across the United States. Shockingly, 15% of adults used a buy now, pay later service recently. That number jumped up from just 10% only 3 short years earlier. Total credit card balances in our country reached a truly horrifying milestone. They hit an all-time high of $1.2 trillion. This catastrophic peak happened in the third quarter of 2025. The household debt and credit report confirmed this heartbreaking reality for us all. My friends, this heavy burden is not a random problem of bad luck. This is a tragic crisis of good habits lost between passing generations. But here is the truly fascinating part that almost nobody says out loud. That exact same Federal Reserve study reveals a shocking hidden contradiction. It completely shatters the popular myth that every generation is equally in debt. Baby boomers are overwhelmingly the most likely group to budget before buying. A 2025 trend report looked closely at these dangerous buy now, pay later services. It found that 62% of boomers calculate their true affordability first. They are the only generational group where that cautious behavior is a majority. Please understand they are not naturally born with superior financial discipline. They simply grew up practicing habits that the rest of us sadly abandoned. We need to go through these 15 forgotten habits one by one today. Bringing them back could completely transform your financial destiny in 2026. Let us start with habit number 1. You must pay cash for the things you can actually pay cash for. Our grandparents survived by using a very simple physical envelope system. They had one envelope for rent, one for food, and one for surprises. When a specific envelope was completely empty, all the spending immediately stopped. There was no magical way to keep buying because the money simply was not there anymore. Today, we carelessly tap our shiny cards, apps, and buy now, pay later screens. Because of this, our human brain does not register the spending in the exact same way. Fascinating behavioral research proves that paying with a card feels psychologically different. It hurts much less than handing over physical bills, so we naturally spend much more. Cash is not some foolish, outdated concept from the distant past. It is a powerful control tool that uses your own psychology in your absolute favor. I am not demanding that you completely stop using your convenient credit cards altogether. That is nearly impossible in our modern world, and it honestly is not entirely necessary. The real secret is applying this envelope system only to your most dangerous spending categories. Use it where your money slips away silently, like eating out, entertainment, and small treats. Set that specific amounts aside in pure cash at the very start of your month. When that cash is finally gone, your spending in that category is completely gone too. Do not keep a backup card sitting in your wallet to cover the gap when you lack discipline. Habit number 2 is to always pay yourself first. This is quite possibly the single oldest financial habit that still exists in human history. It is literally written in the famous book called The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. That magnificent book is almost 100 years old, yet its profound wisdom still holds up today. This is because it beautifully describes an unbreakable principle, not just a passing internet trend. The golden rule is incredibly simple but requires profound dedication. When fresh money comes in, you immediately set aside a percentage for your own future first. You do this before paying any bills and before spending a single dime on anything else. Then you force yourself to live only on the money that is left over. Tragically, most people living today do the exact opposite of this proven wisdom. They spend wildly all month long and then desperately pray there is something left to save. The heartbreaking problem is that there is almost never anything left for their future. The magical trick to successfully building this habit today is pure automation. Our grandparents lacked automatic transfers, so they relied heavily on fierce manual discipline. They physically hid money away before they could foolishly touch it. We possess the ultimate automation tool today, yet almost nobody uses it to their advantage. Set up an automatic transfer for the exact same day your hard-earned paycheck lands. Send it far away into an account you do not look at or check every single day. This brilliantly recreates that same psychological barrier without draining your daily willpower. Habit number 3 is to buy a reliable used car and pay it off as fast as you can. Our sensible parents bought used cars in good condition and paid them off in 2 or 3 years. Today, auto industry data shows the average financing term for a new car in the U.S. exceeds 6 years. That means you are paying painful interest on an asset that bleeds value every single day. You pay this interest for longer than the beautiful new car will probably even run well. You must understand deep in your soul that a car is never an investment. It is simply a mechanical tool meant to take you from point A to point B safely. Treating a vehicle like an investment is a silent, devastating financial mistake. It is the exact mistake that robs the middle class of their wealth over a long lifetime. Think about the heartbreaking reality of car ownership this way. A brand new car loses between 20 and 30% of its total value in the first year alone. If you foolishly finance it over 7 years, you are trapped paying interest for a very long time. You pay interest longer than it takes to watch that shiny car lose half of its original value. Buying a 2 or 3-year-old vehicle with a reliable history changes your life. It magically saves you from suffering the absolute worst part of that cruel depreciation curve. If you aggressively pay it off in 2 years instead of 7, a beautiful thing happens. You quickly free up that heavy monthly payment for something that actually grows in value. You can finally build a real investment portfolio, an emergency fund, or kill expensive debt. Habit number 4 is to thoughtfully repair things before you instantly replace them. This might sound completely obvious, but the sad truth is almost nobody does it anymore. In the beautiful past, when something in the house broke, you simply fixed it. Now, when a device stops working, we rush to blindly replace it with something shiny and new. We foolishly convince ourselves that repairing often costs almost as much as buying brand new. Or worse, we simply surrendered because we do not know how to fix things with our own hands anymore. The financial habit I desperately want you to bring back is not about learning to fix everything yourself. It is much simpler and deeply profound. Before you buy something new, ask yourself a brutally honest question. Did this item actually stop working, or did it merely stop exciting you? Here is a very practical money-saving rule that I personally use in my own life. If repairing something costs less than half of what replacing it would cost, I always choose to repair it. This golden rule applies beautifully to appliances, old furniture, clothing, and even our electronics. Most of the time, there is a hard-working local technician who can fix it perfectly for a tiny fraction of the price. The real problem is not that repairing is more expensive. The painful problem is that replacing is just so much easier. We tragically confuse an easier decision with a financially better decision. Habit number 5 requires you to lovingly cook at home on most days of the week. I am not going to throw an exact rigid figure at you for how much the average family spends eating out. That number naturally varies a whole lot depending on your specific city and your household income. But I can share a powerful truth I noticed over and over again while studying spending patterns. Families who consistently build massive generational wealth almost always cook their meals at home. They joyfully prepare food in their own kitchens 5 to 6 days every single week. They save eating out for very specific, beautiful occasions, rather than treating it as a mindless daily routine. This beautiful habit is absolutely not about ruthlessly depriving yourself of joy. It is about recognizing the scary fact that eating out every single day somehow became incredibly normal. And doing what is merely normal is almost never what actually builds lasting wealth. There is something else hiding behind this kitchen habit that almost nobody ever dares to mention. Cooking at home does not just save you money in a very direct and obvious way. It also magically cuts down on those terribly impulsive late-night delivery orders. Those lazy deliveries usually come heavily burdened with high service fees, expected tips, and sneaky price markups. Try planning your entire week of meals with a single highly focused grocery shopping trip. Do it exactly the careful way our sweet grandmothers used to do it on peaceful Sunday mornings. This simple act completely eliminates those desperate last-minute evening decisions. Those hungry, tired choices are exactly the most expensive and damaging ones you make. Habit number 6 is to fiercely avoid consumer debt for your everyday normal expenses. Remember that terrifying data point I mentioned at the very start of our journey together? The dangerous use of buy now, pay later services grew massively from 10% in 2021 to 15% in 2024. More than half of the desperate people who use it confessed a heartbreaking truth. They admitted it was the only possible way they could actually afford to make that purchase. They were not doing it out of modern convenience, but out of pure, terrifying necessity. Our grandparents brilliantly avoided toxic consumer debt almost by pure human instinct. This was not just because they magically possessed more moral discipline than we do today. It was because their access to easy credit was thankfully much more limited back then. The financial culture of their time treated personal debt as something incredibly serious and dangerous. It was never seen as just another colorful, easy checkout button on a digital screen. There is a surprisingly simple question that can instantly bring that protective instinct back to life. If the tempting option to finance this purchase in small installments did not exist, would you still buy it today? If your honest answer is no, then you probably do not need it nearly as urgently as your racing mind thinks. Consumer debt is not inherently evil or universally bad in every single situation. The silent trap is using it for regular expenses that should easily come right out of your normal monthly budget. You should never rely on a cruel loan that is cleverly disguised as modern convenience. Habit number 7 is to keep a dedicated emergency fund in cold cash, never in volatile investments. A devastatingly common mistake today is blindly throwing all of your available money into risky investments. People foolishly lock away the crucial money they should always have on hand for sudden emergencies. Our wise parents deliberately kept their safe bank money completely separate from their investment money. That strict physical separation beautifully protected them from a very common modern tragedy. It kept them from having to painfully sell their investments at the absolute worst possible moment. You never want to be forced to sell when the stock market is down and you urgently need cash to survive. You must remember that a true emergency fund is absolutely not meant to grow and make you rich. It is meant to be a thick safety net when every single other thing in your life completely fails. The most heartbreaking mistake I see is treating a brokerage account as if it were an emergency savings fund. When the unexpected disaster finally happens, and trust me, it always does, you end up trapped. You are forced to frantically sell off your investments at a devastating loss just to survive. You do this just to cover a scary expense that a separate, boring cash fund would have easily handled. It would have saved you without ever touching a single hard-earned dollar of what you invested for your future. The classic recommendation of keeping 3 to 6 months of basic expenses in a liquid account is vital. It still holds up beautifully today because it completely solves this terrifying problem at its very root. Habit number 8 is to intentionally live far below what the bank actually approves you for. Just because an eager bank approves you for a massive mortgage amount does not mean you have to use it. Our grandparents generally bought modest homes they could comfortably afford on a single income. They never foolishly chased the absolute biggest house they could possibly qualify for on paper. Sadly, that sensible mentality has completely changed in our modern real estate market. Today, it is dangerously common to stretch your family budget to the absolute maximum the bank allows. This reckless decision leaves zero room for unexpected expenses, for vital saving, or for simple breathing room. Remember, the bank calculates how much you can theoretically pay based strictly on your current income. They do not care about your personal peace of mind or whether you are planning to have children. They certainly do not factor in the scary reality that your income could suddenly drop at some point. A golden rule I constantly recommend to families is actually incredibly simple to follow. Try to keep your total housing payment strictly under 25 to 30% of your net income. This includes your mortgage, your insurance, and your property taxes all combined together. You must do this even if the smiling banker approves you for a much higher, more dangerous amount. That beautiful financial gap is exactly the safety margin our grandparents used to aggressively save money. Habit number 9 is to always shop with a written list, never on pure emotional impulse. Going to the bright grocery store with a physical written list is a habit that has practically disappeared. We try to rely on a lazy mental list, but abandoning the written paper is not a small, harmless detail. Impulse purchases silently drain your wealth, typically accounting for 15 to 20% of total spending. Consumer behavior studies clearly show this happens on almost every single typical shopping trip we make. You must understand that writing a list is never about forcing cruel restrictions on your happiness. It is about peacefully deciding exactly what to buy while sitting at home with a calm, clear head. You do this instead of desperately deciding in the store aisle while under the heavy influence of marketing. Retail stores are meticulously designed by experts with deep behavioral research firmly behind them. Product placement, the gentle music, and even the confusing order of the aisles are all calculated traps. All of it aggressively pushes your tired brain toward making unnecessary, expensive impulse buys. A written list is, at its very core, your strongest defense against a brilliant psychological system. It is a system built specifically to brutally beat your willpower at the exact moment of purchase. Habit number 10 requires you to patiently save for big purchases instead of instantly financing them. Think about family vacations, beautiful living room furniture, and expensive new kitchen appliances. Our grandparents dutifully saved for these specific things for many long months before ever buying them. Today, we impatiently finance almost absolutely everything we touch in our daily lives. We even finance things that 30 years ago were considered incredibly small, simple cash expenses. Patiently saving for something before actually buying it does two very powerful things for your mind and wallet. First, it gives you vital time to deeply evaluate if you truly want or need this item in your life. Second, it beautifully saves you all the toxic interest you would definitely pay if you simply financed it. There is an incredible added benefit to this delayed gratification that almost nobody ever mentions out loud. When you save for a big purchase over several months, your burning desire gets severely tested by time. A lot of the time, what excited you 3 months ago simply does not excite you the same way anymore. Suddenly, that carefully saved money ends up going towards something vastly more important for your future. Financing immediately completely removes that beautiful natural filter from your decision-making process. That lost filter used to deeply protect families from blindly buying things they deep down never actually needed. Habit number 11 is to focus on building meaningful tenure at one solid workplace. I am absolutely not saying that switching jobs is always a terrible or foolish thing to do. Sometimes leaving a toxic environment is the absolute best financial decision you could ever possibly make. But our grandparents built incredible lasting wealth by simply staying much longer at the exact same job. They patiently built up vast benefits, secure pensions, and deep emotional stability over many long decades. These precious things are so much harder to come by today because we constantly switch jobs. We recklessly bounce from place to place, blindly chasing the next slightly higher monthly paycheck. The powerful habit worth bringing back here is not forcing yourself to stay at the same place forever. It is about carefully evaluating the whole compensation package before hastily deciding to move on. A 10% raise at a brand new job can sound incredibly appealing to your hungry ego, but it might secretly mean losing your generous employer's retirement matching contribution forever. It could instantly erase the hard years you had already dedicated toward a secure, peaceful pension. The real underlying math can look very drastically different than it brightly appears on a simple piece of paper. Our grandparents were not somehow less ambitious because they chose to stay longer at their companies. They were simply much wiser, carefully weighing the full, true value of a long-term career path. They looked far beyond just a shiny number printed clearly on the biweekly paycheck. Habit number 12 is to boldly contribute to the exact same retirement account without ever moving it. This specific data point absolutely stunned me when I first read it. An incredible analysis was done by the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College. They carefully reviewed the Federal Reserve's complex survey of consumer finances. They found that average combined retirement balances for older households grew in a truly magnificent way. Those nearing retirement saw their wealth jump from $144,000 upward between 2019 and 2022. That breathtaking financial growth absolutely did not come from brilliant, risky investment decisions. It came directly from the quiet, unstoppable magic of relentless consistency. These folks kept contributing, fiercely refused early withdrawals, and never chased the next big trend. Boring, steady consistency aggressively beats complicated, stressful strategy almost every single time. This is a profound truth that legendary investor Warren Buffett has repeated in a dozen different ways. Time spent patiently in the market matters so much more than perfectly timing the unpredictable market. Think about this life-changing financial concept in the simplest and most grounded terms possible. Contributing a fixed amount every month, regardless of market panic, builds immense financial walls. This is exactly what past generations did beautifully through their automatic invisible pension plans. Habit number 13 is to lovingly teach your kids about money early using real-life examples. In the past, curious kids watched their parents physically count out paper rent money at the table. They saw them save pennies in a glass jar and discuss what the family could and could not afford. Money was absolutely never a dirty, forbidden, taboo subject inside the Warren family home. Today, terrified families desperately avoid talking about money in front of their innocent children. Those sheltered kids sadly grow into anxious adults who have never witnessed a real financial decision. This beautiful habit is not about giving cold, formal finance lectures in your living room. It is about gently letting your children see the messy process, even in very small doses. Thomas Stanley describes something incredibly similar to this in his famous book, The Millionaire Next Door. Most people who build real lasting wealth absolutely did not inherit a massive fortune. They simply grew up watching deeply disciplined financial habits being practiced day after day. It was not explained in a sterile classroom, but modeled warmly at home. A child who watches their wise parents choose based on price and true need absorbs that logic. They absorb that powerful mindset forever without anyone having to speak a single word. Habit number 14 is to bravely review your accounts and spending and writing every single week. Long before shiny banking apps ever existed, reviewing your money was a very physical, intentional act. It meant sitting quietly with rough paper, a sharpened pencil, and a pile of crumpled receipts. That slow, deliberate process beautifully forced you to pay fierce attention to your life. Today, invisible digital money moves so incredibly fast that people feel entirely lost. A lot of people truly do not know how much they spent last week, even with a phone in their hand. Reviewing your precious money in writing, even for just 10 minutes a week, changes everything. It remains one of the most effective ways to deeply maintain real, lasting control of your future. It strips away the dangerous illusion of control that a colorful banking app falsely gives you. It does not have to be a complicated, miserable chore that you dread doing. A cheap notebook, a simple spreadsheet, or a basic note on your phone is more than enough. You just manually log every big expense of the week. What truly matters is the conscious act of stopping to look directly at the honest numbers. You take fierce ownership of what you spent instead of letting money bleed away on autopilot. Habit number 15 is to always save before spending on what simply looks good to others. This is the final habit, and it is the one that hits the human heart the absolute hardest. Like I promised you at the very start, our grandparents prioritized what was deeply functional. They bought exactly what they needed to survive, and only afterward did they ever buy for status. Today we live suffocated by constant pressure, fake social media, and endless toxic comparison. We are infected by the desperate feeling that everyone around us magically has more. This pressure completely flips that healthy old order upside down. We spend first on what looks impressive and desperately try to save whatever pennies are left over. But there is almost never anything left over because looking good always costs much more than planned. Brilliant author Morgan Housel explains this profound tragedy perfectly in his book, Same as Ever. The shiny wealth you can easily see is almost never the quiet wealth that actually accumulates. The people who truly possess massive money tend to be the ones who show it the absolute least. They ruthlessly prioritized humble function over flashy image for many long years. This ultimate habit is a fierce decision about your very identity and soul. Would you rather look rich right now or actually be wealthy later? I will be completely honest with you. For a dark while, I tragically fell into this trap too, financing things I could have easily saved for. I did it just because the monthly payment felt deceptively small and harmless. What I finally learned by studying these brilliant generations changed my entire life. None of these 15 habits require you to earn a massive mountain of extra money. They simply require deciding differently and wisely with the exact money you already have. Let us deeply think about two very different people who earn the exact same income. Daniel earns $70,000 a single year. He carries painful credit card debt, finances a car over 7 years, and uses buy now, pay later. He absolutely does not have a cash emergency fund safely separated from his investments. At 50 years old, poor Daniel is still working out of pure, terrifying necessity. Any tiny unexpected expense instantly forces him back into a nightmare of crushing debt. Now look at Alex, who earns the exact same $70,000 a year. Alex pays his variable expenses in cash and contributes to retirement without ever touching it. He bought a humble used car, paid it off in 2 years, and keeps a strong cash emergency fund. At 50 years old, Alex has the beautiful freedom to keep working simply because he wants to. A sudden emergency never knocks him off balance because he already built a soft cushion. The stunning difference between Daniel and Alex was never their basic salary. It was which of these 15 habits they fiercely practiced and protected. None of these habits demand a fancy finance degree or a secret Wall Street investment. They are literally the exact things our parents did without a single second thought. Building real wealth involves no magic tricks and absolutely no secret shortcuts. It only requires making the right, boring decisions and repeating them with fierce consistency. If you found a piece of your own story in any of these forgotten habits today, please take a moment to reflect. Which of these 15 powerful habits are you going to bravely bring back into your life this very week? Share your thoughts and let your voice be heard in the comments below. If this message touched your heart or opened your eyes to a better finance future, you know exactly what to do. Please share this crucial message with someone you love who desperately needs to hear this truth today. Keep following our journey together because we are going to continue this vital conversation. We will keep exploring exactly how you can build real, unbreakable generational wealth for your family. Remember, there are absolutely no magic tricks and there are no secret shortcuts to financial freedom. There are only the right, honest decisions, repeated with fierce and unwavering consistency over time. Thank you for listening, and I wish you profound strength on your new journey to true wealth.